Welcome to the Ancient Cosmic Clock. Today's episode is going to be The Secrets of Astrology Made Simple. And the idea behind this was to present enough in one place so that you can understand the signs, the planets, the houses, the elements, all of the things that you need so that you can do your own reading of your own chart. So why don't we start with elements? I think elements is a good place to start, unless you have something else in mind.
I would like to talk about elements and modality a little bit both at once.
Okay.
Because ultimately all of this is symbolism. And it's symbolism at its core. And everything that you're using to describe anything is really describing the element combined, because each zodiac sign will have an element and it will have a modality. And a modality meaning what type of flow is it? So when you mix those two unique things together, and they don't repeat, there's multiple fires, for example, but there's no other fire that's fixed than Leo, for example.
Yeah, and so just maybe a little housekeeping up front. There are 12 signs of the zodiac, beginning with Aries and ending with Pisces, and you can see that on the wheel of the graphic. There are 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water, and 3 modalities: cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And those combined, 4 times 3 is 12, so that's how you get to 12 signs. And there's a cardinal fire element, there is a fixed earth element, and we'll go through each of these with each of the signs.
Sounds great.
So, why don't we start with the element of fire, since I think there might be somebody here who has a couple of fire elements.
I'm mostly all fire.
You have more fire than anybody I know.
So fire is passion, energy, action. Think of fire. What does that symbolize? It's hot.
Yeah, it's hot, and it transforms things around it.
It moves. It's constantly moving.
That's a very good point. And a lot of this you guys can get on your own when you realize what it is, and you can start looking at the symbolism, and then you're practicing it on your friends and your family, and you're observing them. You learn a lot from experience.
Yeah, the best way to learn this is to read a couple of natal charts.
Especially people you know.
Yeah, people you know well, where it will be maybe easier for you to see it. Okay, anything else we want to say about fire before we talk about earth?
No, let's hit it.
Okay. Earth is in many ways the opposite of fire because it is grounded. It's the only one of the elements that holds a form and a shape. The earth is solid. It doesn't move. It's and it even creeps into our language, how we talk. It's down to earth. It's grounded. It's firm. It's taken on a permanent form. And it's difficult to get it to move. I think you'll find that when you're observing earth alignments.
Yeah, it can definitely be a slower moving energy for sure.
Okay, air is our next element. So air has a lot in common with fire, I would think, in that it doesn't hold a permanent form, and it's always moving, and it moves quickly. And usually when I'm thinking of air elements, I'm thinking of mental energy. So logic, ideas, thoughts, things of that nature. Anything else you want to add about air?
Yeah, it's almost less feeling, though. It's more brainy, more a lot of people will complain if they have a companion that has nothing but air. They'll be they're not giving me emotion. They're giving me thought. They're not wanting to cuddle all the time. Sometimes some of that comes up when there's a lack of that.
All right, and finally, water. So water is receptive. Water is one that itself doesn't take on a permanent shape, but takes on the shape of whatever you're holding it in. I have a bottle of water here, and if I were to drop just a single drop of food coloring in it, it would transform the whole bottle. It would receive all of it. And that's one way to view the element of water in these charts. It's emotional. It's what's the word I'm looking for?
I like to call it beneath the surface, but like emotions are beneath the surface. They're not something you necessarily see. It's sometimes hard to see through certain waters, especially if it's deep or dark. It holds secrets. It's emotional. It's about feeling. It moves. It's fluid. It's intuition. It's the third eye. It's secretive. Some of those archetypes can come up, but it's think and observe water. It can be.
I have seen a lot of water signs be emotional, though. Like openly, you'll see them just cry a lot, or if they're moved or touched.
Cardinal water in particular will do it. Fixed water, I don't know.
Fixed water can be a little more like that's when we're going to get to modalities next. It changes the archetype. Like when you put it like a fixed energy to it, it pushes it further. It's more steady. It brings a steadiness to the water. But if you have it like mutable, like where it's mutating and changing, like Pisces, like it becomes quick to cry. It can be.
Yeah, Cancers too, I've seen.
Yeah, which is quicker to cry, Pisces or Cancer? Tell us in the comments down below.
Yeah.
So the modalities, we've kind of teased these a little bit. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So when I'm thinking about cardinal, I'll use fire as my example for each of these. Cardinal fire is the spark. It's the beginning. It's the first strike of the match. It's where you start the fire. Fixed fire is the blazing, raging inferno that looks like it's never going to go down. And mutable fire is the smoldering coals that if you breathe on them a little bit or add a little more fuel, you can reignite this fire. You can bring it back to that fixed condition, or it can die away and cool off.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. And one thing we should understand about all of this, that there's actually real science connected to it all. Like it is literally our seasons. It's like your cardinal starts each season. It's one of the 4 quarters of the earth. It starts it. It begins it. And it's also like the family archetypes are all based in the cardinal. Like you have Aries, the sun, the child, the male, the prince, and then you go to the next cardinal. It's the mother. She's a creator. She brings life. And then when you go to the next one, Libra, the next cardinal that starts the cardinal season of fall, it's the companion to the sun. It's the other partner. And then when you go to the last one, the last cardinal, Capricorn, the father, it's a starter. It's one that creates life. It's a beginner. And like each season, like the spring starts with a cardinal sign, Aries, and so on and so forth. It all starts with a cardinal.
Yeah. So the 4 cardinal signs are Aries. That's cardinal fire, and that starts in March and April. So that's the spring. The next cardinal sign, so not the next sign in order, but the next cardinal sign is Cancer. That's cardinal water. That runs late June to July. And the next one is Libra. That's cardinal air. That runs late September to October. And finally, Capricorn, cardinal earth, which runs late December to January. And so if you notice that, if you're looking at the graphics and you followed along with what I was pointing out, it makes a cross. Like those are the 4 cardinal signs in the zodiac. So that's where things start. Okay? One of the things that we'll notice when you're reading charts is that everybody has, it's fine to say I'm an Aries, I'm a Leo, whatever you want to, however you want to identify. But everybody has all 12 of them somewhere. They are all always present.
Yes. Should we talk about fixed a little bit?
Yeah. So cardinal, we talked about beginning, commencing. Fixed, I kind of teased it with the raging inferno example. What do you want to say about fixed signs?
It's nature. Like it's holding the middle of the season. So in the summer, the fixed fire holds the season. It stays hot. It's Leo. And in a personality-wise, it's holding passion. And it can be known for drama because it's holding passion there in your face. It's holding energy. It's holding action. If it hasn't, it may not be as quick to start action like a Cardinal Aries, but it will hold it. It will hold the energy. It holds the season. And likewise, jumping to the fall would be fixed Scorpio,
so that's fixed
water.
And fixed waters, that there's two analogies I like for fixed water. One is a river that is just going along its course. It's not deviating, it's continuing in its course. The other one I really like for, because I do have a little bit prominent Scorpion alignment, is an iceberg, where that is water in its most fixed, solid, rigid, unchanging form. And it runs deep, and you don't even know how deep it is, and it has a tendency to scare people. And we're kind of getting into the signs a little bit.
And the way I think about it is the Cardinal water Cancer, for example. It's Cardinal. It's just a starter. Think of like having a bath. You're safe. It's not going to drown you. It's nurture. And then Pisces is water that's changing, something that's more rapid. It could be heavy. It could be slow. It could be fast. And then Scorpio, I like the iceberg analogy, but I'd also like the idea of, let's say you're going to go to the ocean and it's fixed, so it's going to keep going in a direction till it goes to the very bottom of the ocean. And thus people say Scorpio rules over the taboo, over secrets, over the deep, deep, deep mysteries. It's because it's fixed water. It goes underneath the surface and it keeps going. It goes deeper than anything else, any other sign. So this is what we mean by understand the symbols, the symbolism of the elements. You can reflect on them and you can know them just by knowing the nature of the direction or the modality, the flow of the energy, and what element it is.
And so we've talked a little bit about fixed fire and fixed water. That's strange. We should also talk about fixed air. That's the Aquarius alignment. Does anybody in here have an Aquarius?
Maybe.
What can you say about fixed air?
Oh, they can be a little stubborn sometimes.
Well, fixed signs, they all have the stubbornness factor in common a little bit, right?
Yeah, so maybe fixed in their thoughts of how things should be in the world is a very common Aquarius archetype, I think. Like the world would be a better place,
if everybody just...
XYZ, fill in the blank.
We should look at that with the other air elements, because Gemini is known for it's mutable and it doesn't go very far because it's mutating, it's moving, and it's not going in one direction. So it represents more siblings, like your sibling constructs. It's the twins. It's like, oh, you only made it to your twin. Like it's doesn't go that far. But Aquarius, on the opposite hand, is fixed, and it represents social constructs, like how things are in the world at large. Therefore, it keeps going until it goes into the very outer rim of the social constructs. It's because it's fixed air.
Okay, and then Taurus, fixed earth. I've heard that some of these people can be very stubborn and slow to move and difficult to motivate. Is that at all accurate in your...
I will say this about Taurus. Taurus is the best, most reliable friend to have, but it is the worst enemy to have. Like, make friends with them. And for example, let's say you have a Taurus child and they have some heavy Taurus alignments and they don't want to get out of bed, right? And you got to get them up for school. Well, you're better off being very kind about waking them up.
The worst thing you can do if you want to hurry them up is tell them to hurry up. That is just not going to go anywhere. But what you could do is entice them, because fixed earth is heavy in the senses. Think of springtime. You're out smelling the roses, the leaves are green, you feel the warm sun. if you have a child that has heavy Taurus placements, maybe entice them out of bed with breakfast.
Yeah.
Food is something that they'll relate to and can be motivated by.
But also moving with their energy. So, maybe start waking them up long
before you actually need them to. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that kind of allows them to slowly transition into getting up.
And keep in mind also, though, we all have mixed places. We all have all these things. And
we all have all of these in some area of our lives and in some area of our charts. Some of us have really prominent alignments where it's like a big thing. There's a lot of fixed energy in this room. I'm kind of realizing while we're... Except over there.
So... And we're going to get towards the end of the lessons. We're walking you through the archetypes, the basic themes, and then towards the end of the lesson, we're going to get into like, this is what this planet looks like in this energy, and we'll go into more specific details.
Okay, so we've done elements and modalities. What do we want to do next?
I want to talk about the symbolism of the animals.
Okay, let's take the animals then. You want to start with your favorite sign, the child of the zodiac, the ram?
Yeah, so the ram, if you look at how one looks and you think about it from like the side view, it has these long curly horns that wrap around. Think of like a sun. The sun exalts in Aries. It's when the sun hits Aries, it's where the light overcomes the darkness. And think of it's the first of the zodiac, it's the child of the zodiac, and think of it more about a very strong like ego. It's the I am sign. So it's if somebody's wired and they have heavy Aries placements, they may think more in terms of like, if they see something going on with somebody else, they may think, oh, if I was them, then I would do this. It's like the hero of the zodiac. They're putting themselves in the hero and the main character. So like somebody that has heavy Aries placements, so they're reading their Bible and they're reading the New Testament, they're going to be putting themselves like what it would be like to be Jesus. They're going to put themselves in the God place. So
where someone with in contrast, someone maybe with an Aquarius alignment might be saying, I wonder what it would be like to sit and listen to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or I wonder what it was like for the people back at his time when they got to listen to him.
In the crowd when they're passing out this limitless loaves and fishes.
Yeah.
I like it. And so that the ram, they'll ram head forward with their head, and we'll go into the parts of the zodiac that they represent a little more in detail after this. But the ram is head first. Its head is prominent, and it's the head of the zodiac. It's the beginning. It's the start. So, anyways, should we move to Taurus, or somebody else want to say something about Aries?
No, let's proceed to Taurus. So Taurus the bull. You can be bullheaded. This is where some of the stubbornness stereotypes kind of come into play. But once they start going, they don't stop.
Like an ox pulling a cart. Once it's gone, it can keep going. It has more endurance.
It can keep going all day long. It has that fixed earth energy, so it's not going to flame out quickly. It can go all day long. This is why a couple hundred years ago, when the pioneers were crossing the plains, they would have oxen pull their carts, right?
Right. But keep in mind also a Taurus, though, out of all the farm animals, it provides the most meat. Oh. It provides the most milk. It is a symbol of the I haves also. It's about abundance, and we'll go into houses more later.
I like that, abundance and providing.
And it's the middle of spring. Think about how unpleasant the middle of spring is. Like, it is about the beauties of creation.
Yeah.
About abundance, beauties, and they may get maybe a little more into things if they have somebody that has heavy Taurus placements.
Okay, so Gemini, this sign is the twins. This is the first of the human signs. There's just a few human signs in this collection. And Gemini, the stereotype with them is, or the archetype is duality. It's seeing both sides of an issue. It's mutable air and often associated with the spoken word.
I like that. And when I think of that wit, and I see Geminis in action a lot, they're like the quickest for like a comeback. And like we've even seen that on the political stage. And
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Yes, stuff like that. That's a Gemini. They just quick comebacks. And I would never get in a word fight with Gemini. In fact, when I got in sparring contests with people that have heavy Gemini placements, especially if they have Mars, because that's how they fight, right? My idea is just start throwing so many punches on them until they can't think. Because if they come up with a strategy, they'll trick you, and it's the trickster, also known as the trickster of the zodiac. Like if you're reading your Bible, right? And the twins Jacob and Esau are born, and Jacob's hanging on to his brother Esau's heel as they're coming out of the womb, according to the story. But if you look, there's an extra star at the heel in Gemini. It's like these old stories are even telling the themes of Gemini, and then throughout that Genesis account of Jacob, there's all this trickery and wit and smarts and those kind of themes.
Yeah, pulling the switcheroo a couple of different times, and first Jacob and his mom switch out him for his brother on Isaac, and then his father-in-law later pulls the same stunt with Leah and Rachel, the girl he wanted to marry. So it comes back to bite him karmically. So
marries the wrong one. But like it is, if we're going to go into pop culture, a Loki archetype, the Loki would be a Gemini archetype.
Yeah, so it's tricky. It's not necessarily evil, everyone. But it schemes, it plots, it
thinks for sure.
It thinks far ahead. Okay. So the next sign is Cancer, and this is the animal with this sign is the crab.
And the crab, carries a shell with it? It carries its home with it. Therefore, it's the line of the mother of the zodiac. It's cardinal water. At the start of the water is where crabs hang out a lot of times, at the shoreline a lot of times. It's at the very start of the water. It's an initiator, known for, since it's cardinal, it's quick for emotion, nurture, care, symbolisms of cardinal and water.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, our next one is Leo the lion. This one is like the king of the summer. You think about that time of year, which is like midsummer when it's hot all day, and Leo, this sign is ruled by the sun. And the sun is, of all of the, we'll call them planets here, because we know the difference between planets and stars for those of us who've been to 7th grade astronomy. Yes, I understand. But we're going to refer to the sun as a planet, so deal with it. But it's the one that moves in the most steady and consistent fashion. Okay, the moon also moves steady and consistently, but all of the others will go backwards, will go forwards, will speed up, will slow down, and will change their patterns regularly. The sun is consistent. Every morning it rises, every day it sets. You know about when that's going to be, one day to the next. Yes, it traverses a whole path throughout the course of a year, but it is consistent one day to the next. And Leo, the lion, as the king, as the king archetype, if you like, holds that theme as well.
I like it. I want to point out something about the animal and how it looks. If you look at a lion head on and it has the mane, it's like a very close symbol to what the sun looks like. It has the fire around it. And that should be considered in helping you consider and remember like the symbolism and meanings of these.
I have a question. So if Leo is ruled by the sun, would that mean that any Leo placement would never be retrograde?
Any Leo placement, well, any sun placement can never be retrograde.
It's the sun that would not be retrograde ever.
But no, you could totally have like Mars and Leo, and that could be retrograde. That could totally happen. Okay. The sun and the moon can never be retrograde. Right?
Right. Do you want to explain to him how you would see retrograde?
Yeah. So if you were to... Gosh, this is hard to explain without like charts in front of me. But if you were to follow... Like if you were watching for these planets and their location in the sky every day, the sun you can follow. It's really easy. You see it every day. The moon also is pretty easy to find. You can see it every day. The other ones you might need a little bit of like... You might need to spend 5 minutes on Google to learn how to find Mars and Jupiter and Venus. But it's not difficult. What happens, because we all revolve around the sun, right? And the moon revolves around the earth. Well, the other planets that revolve around the sun, as we're speeding up, as we're catching up to them in their orbits, or as they're catching up to us in our orbit, it'll seem like it changes speed and eventually slows down and then goes backwards in the sky relative to the backdrop of all of the other stars that you might see. And it'll go retrograde, for a couple of weeks, and then it'll head back the other direction. So I feel like I've
depending on the planet.
Depending on which planet it is, like the outer planets spend about half the year in retrograde all the time. And the inner planets, Mercury does several retrograde cycles each year. Mercury's complete cycle is about 90 days for its orbit around the sun. And, Venus and Mars both will do retrogrades about every year to 18 months, depending on where we are relative to each other. And it's the same phenomena that would have us if we were planning space missions to these planets. Okay, there's a moment in the orbits where the Earth and Mars are closest, and if you were trying to launch a spacecraft to go there, that's when you would want to be traversing that because it's a shorter distance. And there's a moment when the Earth and Mars are furthest apart. They're on opposite sides of the solar system. And that would not be an ideal moment to be trying to send a spacecraft.
Good point.
Yeah, and one thing, he's explained a lot of the astronomy behind this, and I'll say this right now, like, the more you learn everything, astronomy, astrotheology, astrology, anytime you can, it's called polymath, when you can study more than one subject and have a minor in one, a major in another, that idea, it makes you stronger, it makes you better at it, the more diverse you are.
It gives you greater understanding of each.
It does. And so that's very astronomy, what he explained there. But astrology, if it's in retrograde, it has a little bit of a diminishment of strength. Like one example, like recent one, Saturn's been in Taurus. That's in opposition to Scorpio, because Scorpio's on the opposite end. Scorpio's interest rates went up. Like when it was going forward in Taurus, giving power to its opposite, Jupiter inflates, it expands. We'll go into that more later. But it was like inflating like home prices. People that own stuff, their value grew. But on the other end, like interest rates would be going up.
People who need to borrow money.
Because Scorpio's borrowing money. It's what belongs to other people, especially if you look at our squares and opposites and trines and positives map.
Yeah, those two maps in the middle of this poster are kind of what you're referencing here.
Yes, and my point is when it would go into retrograde, it would ease up a little bit. Like the energy wouldn't be as crazy and powerful. And
the interest rates would drop a little bit.
Yeah, and then back in another example, back in 2020, we have to be careful about what words we use. But
there's something that happened in 2020 that caused a lot of people to spend a lot more time at home and separated from people.
Spring of 2020.
That's when it started, big time.
I'm sure you have no idea what we're talking about because you've lived under a rock for 5 years.
But Saturn, for example, would be in place of, it would be in Aquarius. Saturn takes away, it does the opposite of Jupiter. And it would be, Jupiter was there too, actually. And it expanded our social networks online, but like it was getting taken away, like in person. But you would see that we would have a lot more restrictions on our planet as Saturn was going straight forward in Aquarius. And then the restrictions would ramp up, and then when it would go retrograde, it would pull back. It would ease up. We would have a little bit more freedoms. And to gather, to whatever they were enforcing. Like, I'm not going to go into those subjects. I don't want to ping us for that.
Yeah, I don't want to get this video flagged, so be careful.
So relate that to personalities. If you have retrograde of one of your planets, it may be a diminishment of strength, or it could be a going backwards, going a different direction with that than other people usually would, if that makes sense. So,
okay. So on to Virgo. We kind of took a bit of a detour talking about retrogrades and everything, but that's totally okay. Virgo, this is the next of the human avatar signs of the zodiac. And
in regards to Virgo, which is next, let's contrast it with the other earth signs to understand it. So Taurus is fixed. It's earth. It's possessions, right? So when you move to mutable earth, it's mutating around. It's more practical. It's the most practical of the signs. And it's more about daily tasks. It's about like your routine. It's your schedule. Think of the symbolism of the Virgin. Virgo the Virgin. It's purity. It's perfection. It expects perfection.
Yeah, well, and that time of year is harvest time. So like in Taurus season, you might be planting. At Virgo season, you're harvesting. So it's details. You know, if you were writing a book, hypothetically, ancient cosmic language, available at fine bookstores everywhere and Amazon.com.
Thank you.
If you were writing a book, it would be very helpful to have somebody with that kind of attention to detail participate in the editing.
Yeah. Especially
the editing phase. The content generation phase, maybe not, but it's the attention to detail. It's the finishing the job. It's making something that is already good better and perfecting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Virgo, you got to contrast them also by their opposites. We probably should be doing this a little bit more throughout the thing, but where Virgo is like, think of it like the scholars of this world. It has a superpower in convincing people because it comes from an official, verified place.
And it brought all the receipts to prove it.
Yes. Yeah. Opposite of that is Pisces, where it's the subconscious. It's heaven. It's everything out of order. It's like a dream state where your dream wasn't in linear order. It's like reading the book of Isaiah in the Bible. It's like out of order. It's cryptic. It's symbolic. Virgo, the Virgin, is every T crossed, every I dotted.
Look, these are the 10 Commandments. It's not that hard.
Right. So, and Virgo is exalted when Mercury, which is communication, goes into it because it's perfect. It speaks perfectly, right? And then Pisces, that's out of order, is considered a fall. It's like a gross energy. It's rambly. It's all over the place.
Scattered.
But the opposite, when you look at love and romance, Venus, like if somebody's super controlling and perfected, Virgo struggles a little more with romance. But then Pisces is like, we're going to give you the fairy tale romance. So it does the opposite.
We're going to make your dreams come true.
So keep, like, all of these are very good signs and powerful in one area, and they're usually weak in another area. They're an attractant in one area, and they're a repulsion in another area. So every sign has like a good and a bad way that it can be used. It has things it's naturally good at. Okay, Libra.
Okay, Libra is another of the human avatar signs, and it's the scales of balance, the scales of justice, the scales of commerce. And who wants to talk about the famous Libra decision-making process?
Well, it kind of splits energy. It sees both sides. Same Gemini can do the same thing. Like it's
a dual sign, just like Gemini and
like
Gemini.
You take air and then you divide it. So
It's gonna think about.
I love it. I love hanging out with like heavy air placements that move, because you can talk them into things easier. So to me, it's one of the better ones to hang out with. But it's divided. It sees both sides. It's the peacemaker. It's a symbol of the scales of balance. It's just a symbol of peace.
Yeah, it definitely prefers peace over conflict, and that can be a wonderful thing to have in your life and in your home. Seriously, yeah. So Libra is often concerned with aesthetics. They make things balanced and beautiful and pleasant to look at, pleasant to experience. They're great at designing things. You know, if you want your home decorated, someone with a Libra alignment can do a great job decorating, especially relative to someone without any of that.
And they're the companion, they're the wife, the spouse of the zodiac. They're the other half.
I would say Libras are pretty good at thinking about their companion or the people that they love, their close relationships. They tend to be very thoughtful and considerate and accommodating.
Yeah.
Okay, do we want to talk about the best sign of the zodiac next?
Scorpio. They're
Scorpio's
certainly the
out
most.
there.
They're certainly
Magnificent.
the most interesting. I think all my best guy friends have been Scorpios.
Yeah, so let me tell you about the most tremendous sign. The Scorpio sign is the only one that has 3 avatars. Okay, there's the Scorpion, and on our graphic we don't have the second one, the Serpent. And on our graphic we've used the Eagle as the third, and it's in keeping with the principal Scorpio theme of transformation. You know, and you can think of almost anything in nature that does this as fitting this theme. A caterpillar eats and eats and eats and eats and eats all these leaves, and then it builds this cocoon around itself, and it completely liquefies its insides, and then it emerges as a butterfly. It's a very Scorpion kind of theme. It's a very positive theme positive way of putting it. But the avatars, you know, the Scorpion, the Serpent, and the Eagle. Scorpions just sting people all the time. Serpents are a little more strategic about when they apply their sting. And the Eagle is very strategic about it and only stings when really necessary. It strikes from above, and it doesn't just sting everything. But a scorpion, if you take an actual scorpion and you put it in a jar, eventually it will sting itself to death. It'll go out on its terms, and it can do that. So there is kind of a self-destructive tendency to look out for with wherever that sign is placed in your chart.
I like it. I want to point out one more thing about the eagle. It is, if you look at the graph again, it is the have-nots. It is the opposite of Taurus, which is abundance, possessions. So it's the idea of that which belongs to other people. And for example, the theme of an eagle, like it feeds, it looks from above, it can see,
Yeah.
it seeing things that others don't see, and it will swoop down and snatch like a young that belongs to somebody, to another creature. And I've even seen YouTube videos of it snatching kids up in the air and start to carry them away, or snatches a goat or a younger lamb or whatever, and will like throw it off a cliff to injure it. But it's the theme of it is it's what belongs to other people.
It'll take what it wants.
Yeah.
You know, and also one of 2 signs in the zodiac that is wearing armor. You know, Cancer is also armored. Both water signs are armored for the fight. So, maybe don't get in a fight with a Scorpion, because even if you win, you'll wish you hadn't.
Yeah.
I'm giving you all the one-liners on Scorpio.
Next, Sagittarius, the Archer Centaur.
Yeah. So this is a Jupiter-ruled sign, and maybe we could have gone over planetary rulers on all of these, but we're kind of doing this on the fly, so we'll mention it when we mention it. It is all on the poster, okay? And I feel like the Archer Centaur, it was like it's a decision of, do you want an archer or a centaur? And the answer is yes, absolutely. We want both. Man or horse, yeah, more, and it's going to be great. And it's a sign that I associate with like that adventurous kind of Indiana Jones type of attitude.
What I focus a lot on the arrow archetype, the bow, because it's fire and it's mutable. Therefore, it's sometimes like inconsistent, burnout, smoldering, but it's also known as the blue flame, the hottest part of the fire. So Leo is seen as like the yellow flame, the inner fire. Aries is seen as the red flame, like the red initiative part of the fire. And Sagittarius, the blue, the hottest burning, but also the coals. So it's the hottest hot and the lowest lows. It's sometimes with no energy and sometimes with the biggest burst of energy.
Sometimes it can be provoked into a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people like get on internet forums where they've like invited people to leave, and it would be a lot of times people with heavy Sagittarius placements, because they would when they would explode, it was just bigger than any other people would tolerate. I certainly like the Sagittarius archetype. It's one of my very favorites because it's more exciting than all the other signs, in my opinion. That's how I see it. But I have a lot of fire placements, so not Sagittarius placements, but fire placements. And I love Sagittarius. There's not a funner theme person
They're adventurous. It's science, religion, travel.
It's easy to get them to say yes. Like, yeah, let's do it.
Mutables. So, like, you bring up the idea of, like, science and religion. Think of the arrow. It's the symbolism of the arrow. It's aiming up. Mm. It's shooting higher than everything else. But the arrow usually comes down, so it has, like, a little bit of a downside to it. But it's the highest flyer of, like, all the signs.
Okay, Capricorn, the goat. I've been told that Capricorns can have a tendency to complain a lot, like goats.
Well, look at their part of the season that they belong to. They hold the winter solstice. They hold the darkest day of the year.
Yeah, it's cold.
It's where it initiates winter, but it's also the father of the zodiac, and it's probably better and more healthy to think of it as it's the trailblazer. It's the one that's going to speak out the wrongs so that the road becomes better for everybody else.
Clearing the blocks.
Clearing the blocks.
Clearing the blocks, and I would add, like, building something that's going to last. Like, when you need a realism to a project if you want a project to get finished. And some of these other signs can have great pie-in-the-sky ideas, and they might even start, but you're not going to build the big, beautiful skyscraper. You thought I was going to say wall, didn't you?
No. That's funny.
A big, beautiful wall. You're not going to build that if you're just asking the Leo to say, hey, should we build this? Yeah, let's do it. And let's go do something else. Let's go do something more fun. Like the staying power of get your head down and get back to work and stick to it. Like, that's a really important part and quality of life. And that's part of how we can have things that can last. It's that type of energy.
I like it. I want to talk a little bit more about the goat. You've heard the term as a lamb to the slaughter, right? Because the ranchers will say, oh yeah, the lambs they know they're going to get killed, and they'll just go quietly. And then the goats, they scream the whole way, like bloody murder. They don't go quietly. And Also, the goats are really known to climb mountains. And one maybe common question to ask, which we get asked a lot, is because Western astrology holds to the four corners, they hold to the seasons. They stay consistent. They start Capricorn time at the winter solstice, even though there's precessional slippage where the sign starts moving off and it looks like it's in a different sign, and they hold to it because the angle of the sun is telling the same story as the goat. And for example, the sun is at its low, and it's starting its walk back, increasing light little by little. Like the angle of the sun, the angle of light is doing the goat theme. It's walking back up the mountain to find that light on the horizon again.
And I would say they're pretty good at achieving goals.
And that's why they're known for ruling the 10th house, which rules over career, where
they are part of the reason we have nice things.
Yeah, so it's the father, it's the goals, it's the career, and then contrasting it with Virgo, it's mutable.
It's the discipline of sticking to it.
Yeah, and Virgo would be the daily task. It's a little bit different movement of Earth, because Capricorn's cardinal, the mutable Virgo. We're showing you, contrasting how these elements act differently. Because at the core, once again, it's modality, the flow of the energy with the element. We're all the symbolisms coming from those, if you want to fully understand the symbolism.
Okay, our next one is Aquarius. This is another human avatar sign. Who would like to talk about Aquarius?
Aquarius is pretty much the best sign of all the signs. Just kidding.
So, what's the...
Spoken like an Aquarius.
So this is where...
Not nearly enough bluster. It's the most tremendous.
So when we break this out, and one of the biggest questions people have for new ones, because Aquarius is known as the waters or the water bearer, they're like, isn't it a water sign? But it's an air sign.
Yeah, it's so it bears the water, just like the clouds in the sky. You know, that's air, but it is water that's going to be dropped on you eventually.
I like that. That's cool.
It's a really good analogy.
And it's like the avatar of Aquarius is a person pouring out the pitcher of water. So you can think of it just like the clouds. When the time is right, dumping the rain on you.
So that everything can be alive. For everyone.
For everyone, yes.
For everyone.
Not just on the best and the greatest.
One of the reasons why I like Aquarius a lot is it's very big picture. It thinks bigger. Like I get in my own world where I'm thinking like I'm trying to just figure out one of the secrets of the universe. But being with an Aquarius, it puts me in this place where she makes me think bigger, and like my ideas get put in a different place than I naturally think about them myself, and that's why I like Aquarius so much.
But yeah, Aquarius is the humanitarian. They're the servant, sometimes referred to as the peasant. But my argument is, let he who is greatest among you be your servant.
If you think about the symbolism, and you want to, that's very well. When you pull in the symbol of the seasons, though, and you're looking at what's nature doing that time of year, you can learn a lot too. For example, it's the very middle of winter. What makes winter better other than serving, being a good neighbor? You make the world a better place, and it's the most cold, frigid at the start of the sign of Aquarius, but towards at the very end of the season of Aquarius, the water's starting to break free, and it's starting to move, it's starting to gather again. Thus the symbolism of it representing humanitarianism, service.
I think there's an association with technology and the sciences too. I mean, similar to Sagittarius in that way, but I think of Aquarius as like the mad scientist who's thought up these brilliant ideas in his garage that maybe has some crazy hair going on.
Yeah, it certainly has an archetype of technology in it. And we see that coming into the age of Aquarius now. How much is our technology increased? Yep. So Anyways, it's the regular people. If you contrast it to Leo, Leo's the main character on the stage. Aquarius is the regular people, the social constructs that show up to the stage.
Okay, and the last of the 12 signs, Pisces. This is the mutable water sign, and it's the two fish.
Two fish, think of like two parts of the brain. It's the subconscious world.
So it's another duality sign.
Yeah.
That has two things going on with it.
And what's going on with nature, when we're in Pisces season, we're coming up towards the equinoxial point, where we're in the darkness, we're in this darker part of the world, and it's about to ascend to the heavenly plane, meaning spring and summer, where there's more light than darkness. It's ascending to heaven. It's taking us back to our upper seasons, which are like a Garden of Eden, and the lower seasons are like this lone and dreary wilderness. It's very biblical in nature. I mean, we put on coats of skins as we fall, the fall of man at Libra, at the companion, at Eve. We fall, and then we rise. This is where we rise. This is where we go back to the garden paradise. So very subconscious, very right-brained sign.
Spiritual.
Yeah, very
Spiritual.
Creative, spiritual, artistic.
Intuitive.
Intuitive. Yeah, that's another good word.
Because it's fluid, it's water, it's moving water, it's fluid. Therefore, it's intuitive. It's...
Yeah, and they often struggle from a similar... I think I've thrown the Libra decision making under the bus a lot of times. All of the duality signs have some of that going on. The Gemini sign has that. Pisces certainly has that. Yes, Libra has it too.
Well, if you get more mutable, it's going to probably be more fun. If you get fixed, it's probably more consistent. They both are going to have their strengths, their power.
I think it's really important, too, to point out the fish that's ascending and the one that cycles over and over, because that is the whole duality of Pisces. So if you want to go over that.
That's a great way to put it. It's so if you look at the sign in the sky, one of the fish circles the horizon forever and never goes anywhere. The other one ascends to the north. And that's very much the Pisces archetype. Like, you can choose to continue the same pattern. Groundhog Day is a day that happens just before Pisces season and is also an excellent movie if you haven't seen it. But I'm referencing the movie here because it's the repetitive, you're doing the same thing that you've done, the way you've always done it, over and over and over and over again, until you finally learn the lesson you need to learn to rise out of that pattern.
I like it. Perfect. And so that lower, think of it this way, like you're going to move through the zodiac wheel again, and Pisces is the last sign, and think of it when you're going through your cycles of life, you can make the right choices to where you ascend out of something, but also to where you get into this current where the lower fish takes you into a place that's more of getting trapped into your addictions. It's getting trapped into the net. Think of it that way. Think of that and apply it to our lives too.
Or like getting caught in a riptide where it's hard to get out.
Mm-hmm. And Pisces can be prone to escapism, whether that's substance abuse, whether that's technology, games, movies.
Just kind of detaching from reality.
Yeah, like wanting to step into the other world, whether that's the other world of some video game, whether that's the other world of spirituality. So it has all of those archetypes, and there's that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's all in how you use it and how it applies to you. And
I think we're giving you enough to where when you understand these archetypes, you'll understand the placements of the planets, and we're ending the age of Pisces in the zodiac, the age of Pisces, right? And how much has video games and technology and other worldly realms
skyrocketed?
How much have they skyrocketed and manifested? And I mean, we had a friend that was the creator. It was his original idea, the game EverQuest, the first MMORPG, massive online multiplayer, whatever.
And
And-
you're talking like you got Mercury in Pisces.
So he created a whole video game genre, or it was his idea when he worked for Sony, that, anyways, he created this whole genre and where people would be living in another world. And then the servers would go down and there'd be people calling him up, threatening him that like they were going to like kill him, burn down, whatever. They would make threats on it, and he eventually got out of it. But like it was their own world, their own reality. They were living in that other reality. And Pisces is the other reality. It is another world, and it's best to be seen by that they are the fantasy. They are the creator, the one that's creative.
The dream, the illusion,
Yeah, it has all those
the
archetypes.
spirit realm. Yeah.
So, do we want to talk about aspects for a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to talk about? Let's talk about the trine aspects. So, if you look at this graphic, you can see that there's a triangular relationship between each of the elements that share, or each of the signs that share a common element. Each of the water elements or each of the water signs are linked as a trine aspect. Each of the air signs are linked in a trine aspect.
And this is getting into more intermediate stuff, and we'll have a more intermediate class after this, but we do want to touch on the basics of this so that you guys can...
and what I wanted to get at with that, just as an introductory to it, is that when you have a common element, there's a supportiveness of that kind of energy. When you have water with water, that tends to lend support to both of them. Mm-hmm. Where when you have a more challenging aspect that is, a square or an opposite, that can be a little bit more challenging to you. That can cause a little more polarity and
Friction.
Friction is a good word I'm looking for. In how that energy is going to flow with you, you'll feel like you're getting blocked.
And this can relate to people's personalities. We're going to show you a circle, and we're going to give you an example and we're going to do a partial reading on the rock here later. And it relates to personality, meaning like if you have two planets that are both trine with each other, they can sometimes flow with each other better. But also in looking at relationships, they can. You can flow, you can move, you can be in line.
And if you have
with your
a
partner.
square or an opposite, it can feel like it's hard to get through. It's hard to, depending on what that is and how exactly that's manifesting for you, it can just be a challenge. It can create some friction.
Yeah, and for people with a Christian background, think of it this way. Whether you call it the Trinity or the Godhead, there's like a flow between Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Think of it like that. Like the Holy Spirit connects you to the Father and the Son, right? So think of it in terms of that. The elements are one. They are one entity.
One flow.
One flow. So, and then this is complex. We're going to just throw it out there. There's something called sextiles also, where it's, how would you describe a sextile?
So you take one sign, you skip the one next to it. So you take Aries, you skip Taurus, and you go to Gemini. That's how I would describe a sextile.
Which it would connect it to a friendly element. So like fire would go with air, because air and fire, think how they would feed each other. But then earth and water flow together too. They'll connect and combine. You'll see muddy water, right? So it's going to an element that it seems to roll better with. So one thing to kind of be mindful of, air and fire do well together generally when they meet a sextile angle. But there'll be a kickback. Like, for example, like Aries, the I am, the self, and Libra, the companion, carry opposite archetypes. They're in opposition. It doesn't mean that they can't get along, because fire and air do pretty good, but think of it like a pulse, a repulsive pulse where they're covering the opposite archetype. And they may flow good at times, but there may be energetic magnetism that may cause them to conflict at certain times during the year when there's certain alignments.
Yeah, and that opposition, that polarity, you can think about how fire and air relate to each other. Air can fuel the fire and spread the fire, right? Fire can consume all of the air. Or air can put out the fire if you have enough of it fast enough. So there is a polarity there, and there's a give and a take. And the sextile aspect is kind of the possibility of how that can flow. But the opposition is it can be conflicting or it can be positive. It's all in how you use it.
I like it. And then let's touch on squares and opposites. And I want to actually read across the screen and have you guys look at it by contrast. Like, for example, Cancer, the mother of the zodiac, its opposite is the father. They hold like the universe in balance. And so it is with Aries, the self, the I am, with Libra, the partner. They hold the two opposites. And once again, they're square though. Like if you look at it in a bigger, broader sense, and you look at what it's in a quadrant with, you have the self, the mother, the father, the spouse to the self. Like it's the 4 different parts of the family. It's all familial. And they hold an archetype opposite of each other. It's not that they're necessarily enemies, but as much as that they are, some people could see it that way, but they hold a different job.
Can be sometimes.
They hold a different job. So let's look at the other ones though. So because Gemini rules over lower learning, it's more about talking. It's about like witty conversation. But Sagittarius holds the idea of higher learning, like the sciences, religion. And then Virgo is about like what's approved, what's authoritative, what's perfect, what's in order, what's organized. And then Pisces is the subconscious. It's heavenly things. And then let's talk about the fixed. So where you have Leo, it's the divine person. It's the main character. And then Aquarius is the regular people. And then Taurus is resources or the haves. And Aquarius is the others' resources, things that belong.
Scorpio is the others' resources.
Yeah, Scorpio is others' resources. So they all hold just like a different job, something opposite of each other. And to kind of understand how they all relate, that also lets us glean understanding
the way these all relate to each other. So, sometimes some there are people out there who would view squares and opposites as kind of negative aspects. I would just say they're potent aspects. They don't have to be negative. But, if you look at them elementally, square to Aries would be earth and water. Well, fire and earth, that doesn't tend to flow real well naturally all the time, and fire and water certainly not all the time.
Okay, let's move on to the body parts, because there's a lot of symbolisms that we can glean from the body parts.
Okay. So next we're going to talk about I don't even know what the right term for this is. The body of the zodiac?
I call it the cosmic body.
Cosmic body? Okay, I like that. And let's begin with Aries at the head.
It's the initiator. It's the brain. See, if you look at it and the way that the branches of the ram's horns, it's the two sides of the brain. Aries people can get very brainy in their head. They can think a lot, but it's also sometimes rush without thinking.
Yeah, jump in head first.
Head first.
To something.
That's what leads. Your brain, your thoughts are what lead.
Okay, and I guess maybe we should back up a little bit. When we make these associations between the signs and the different parts of the body, what do we mean by that?
I'm wanting to go through this so that people can look at the symbolism and better understand each sign by understanding what part of the body it represents.
Okay.
It will add and flesh out their understanding. And so when they're looking at this graphic and they're doing their own reading and they're using this as a reference chart, they can oh yeah, it's this part of the body.
So it's one more avenue with which to explore the symbolism of these signs. And, you know, when you're reading your own chart, this is kind of a intuitive type of activity. So it's something where if something speaks to you, that's what you need to run with.
I like it.
Okay. So the next one is Taurus. That's the neck. And that's
neck and the shoulders.
So have you ever heard of someone being stiff-necked or stubborn?
Well, it's the fixed earth. It's just slower moving. But it's the
all your
idea
food has to pass through your neck.
But your neck controls the direction of your head. Like, it's about looking before it crosses the road. Like, it's that idea, that concept. It can hold up things. That's why it takes longer, because it's going to turn and look both ways. And it's the shoulders. It's going to like put a strap on it and carry it, pull it like the ox. It's got to gear up first.
Okay. So then
Gemini.
The next sign is where it splits into two, you know, appropriately so, because Gemini is the arms and the words.
Yep. Communication. Well, sometimes you'll see heavy Gemini placements start moving their arms around a lot sometimes too. So it's and you can actually, when you get good at this, it puts like more energy onto the person when they have heavy placements with their signs with that part of the body. Like Aries placements sometimes will have bigger heads, and Geminis can have like, it could affect their mouth. Taurus placements could affect their neck, shoulders. Like something to kind of just look for, just to plant a seed there for you guys.
Yeah. So what is Cancer gonna?
Cancer's the breasts. I think it's the mother.
One of my favorite body parts.
So it's the motherhood. It's nurture, and sometimes we're just gonna hint at it. Heavy Cancer placements can be bigger in certain places. Like oftentimes. We'll have to go a little more in detail with that a little bit later on planetary placements, but
okay. So Cancer is the breast.
yes,
Leo,
the heart
is the heart.
It's the passion.
Yes. It's the fire within.
It's what you love. It's love. It's love embodied. Virgo is the bowels. Think about how like
the bowels and the guts and the I think of Virgo people I know who, I think almost all of them at some point or other have had some kind of a gastrointestinal something or other going on with them.
Yeah. And it's not that these things can't be overcome. So we're very big into freedom and agency, but Virgo, the gut has a lot to do with controlled and order, your diet. It rules over health and fitness. So keep in mind those archetypes. It's perfection. If you live with health and perfection, like that would be the Virgo way. It doesn't mean that every Virgo is going to be that way, but with themselves. But
yeah, and remember, we all have all 12 of these somewhere.
Libra, balance, the hips, the lower back, kind of more of those regions.
Libra is stability and keeping things in balance, because if you're out of balance, you can't walk, you can't do anything. And if you suffer some kind of an injury, one of the first things you need to do is restore balance so that you can begin to function again.
I like it. And then Scorpio, the private parts of the zodiac. I'm going to tread carefully here, but those are, I hate to give a sex ed talk, but like it's the part of the body that
does the things.
it can go in another person's business, you know what I mean? And Scorpio is known for secrets, the taboo. It represents what belongs to other people. So think symbolism when it comes to these parts. No joke.
Okay, Sagittarius.
The thighs.
All right. And Capricorn is the knees.
Think about like submission, like putting your knees on the ground, bending the knee, fatherhood, government, governance. Back to Sagittarius, like the thickness, it's at the thick part of the leg. Think about movement. Think about like, it is higher education. It is stuff that's more meaty, more thick, more deep than the rest of the part of the body. Okay. Aquarius is the humanitarian. It's your legs, the water's the thing that gets you moving.
And finally, Pisces, the feet.
They're shaped like fishes, kind of, if you think about it, like long fish, like they're shaped like a salmon or a trout. And it's that part of the animal, and it's about keeping your feet grounded. Like if your Pisces are almost to have their feet float off to heaven, you know, and it's kind of like almost has like a chiasmus, like a duality with like Aries, because it's kind of a representative of the heavenly realms, and like a mirror, it's mirroring the idea of the sky, but it's in the opposite place.
Okay, so should we do planets or houses next?
Let's mention the houses.
Okay, let's talk about houses.
We're going to go into this in our next lesson, but we aligned the clock to show what the houses are, which house they rule over. So Aries is at the first house, Taurus is at the second house, and so on till Pisces starts the 12th house. So we align the clock to match that idea so that it's a reference for you guys.
So first house, that's the I am, that's the self, that's usually the way you present yourself to the world, right? The first thing people see when they're like just barely getting to know you.
Yeah, it's the first inheritance, kingdom, house. Like if you read your Bible, like it uses sometimes other words when it's referring to that concept. Okay. So first most thing is your identity.
Yeah, like that's the first thing that people would notice about you, like who are you? Okay. The second house is your stuff, right? Your resources.
Yep.
Things that you have.
Third
is how you talk, your communication.
And yeah, could represent your siblings too.
Yeah, it can be close family members, definitely.
Fourth is your home, your mom.
Yeah, your family of origin or your family that you're in now. It's the things that maybe the whole world doesn't see about you.
Yep. Fifth is your passion, your love, your romance, how you like to be romantic.
Yeah, it's fun, it's playtime, it's well, I think that's all I want to say about that here.
Sixth house is how you would organize stuff, like your routine, your habits. Seventh is kind of the partner.
Seventh is I would say I would go as far as to say it's what you're attracted to. It's what you're drawn towards.
Yep. Eighth house could be intimacy.
Yeah, it certainly plays a role there, and I would say eighth house is also death, literally and metaphorically, transformation, going through like big changes in life, how you experience those things.
Yeah. Ninth house is how you'd compartmentalize science, religion, those kind of things.
Yeah, higher education, long journeys.
And 10th house is more like your career. So if you find somebody's 10th house, a lot of times you can find what type of career they're doing.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the ways that that I've been able to use, and I think you have too, like to back into figuring out where someone's aligned. Like you can see what they're doing.
Yeah, if you don't have their exact birth time.
Yeah, you can kind of back into it. That's one of the tools. Okay, 11th house, that's social constructs, that's friends.
Yeah, how you'd socialize, all that.
And 12th house?
Spirituality, habits, addictions, things. It's also kind of a leftover house.
Yeah, it's kind of all of the above. Everything that didn't fit somewhere else kind of gets dumped into the 12th house.
Yeah, we're going to go into planets next. We're not going to spend all day on this, but we have aligned the planets to where they're in their home or ruling constellation. And if you notice, there's 2 planets sometimes, and that is where there's like a co-ruler, where they share a ruler. And if you look at like the one that's visible in our night sky, for example, if you're looking at Aquarius, if you see Saturn there, that was considered the ancient ruler because people couldn't see Uranus. But then modern astrologists have put Uranus with Aquarius.
Yeah, the outer planets can't be seen with the naked eye, and so ancient astrologers kind of everything stops at Saturn.
Yeah.
But modern astrologers have assigned rulerships to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in Aquarius, Pisces, and Scorpio, respectively. But there's a really easy way. I like to remember this. If you look at Leo and Cancer together, Leo is ruled by the sun, Cancer ruled by the moon. And then if you just move out one sign at a time, Virgo and Gemini are ruled by Mercury. Libra and Taurus are ruled by Venus. Scorpio and Aries are ruled by Mars. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. And Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn. So there's a symmetry to it that is helpful for me to remember these. I'll also notice the pairings. Leo and Cancer, that's a fire and a water sign. Mercury rules an air and an earth sign. Venus also air and earth. Scorpio and Aries, ruled by Mars, is water and fire again. So there's that pairing and that symmetry
of those 2 opposites.
Yeah.
I love it. That's beautiful. One other thing to note is if you want to understand kind of the meanings of the planets a little more, and you just want to look at it from a symbolic perspective, if you don't remember everything we've said, of course.
Then go back and watch this video.
Like Leo and the sun have a pretty synonymous meaning. They have some very similar meanings, and same thing with the moon and Cancer. And then where you see duplicates, like Mercury in both Gemini and Virgo, for example, Mercury kind of takes on the idea of both Virgo and Gemini in its meaning. It kind of is like a cross between those 2 when you see it like duplicated. So when you see Venus, it carries a lot of meanings that share with Taurus and Libra, for example, or Mars has some cross meanings between Scorpio and Aries, and so on and so forth. Like if you're just looking at the chart and you want to kind of understand the planet more, we've laid them out to where look at the constellation it is in, and
look at the planet that rules that constellation.
Yeah.
And there's entire libraries of stuff that's been written on this, some of which you might even want to read at some point. But where this is going to make a difference for you is just using it. Read some charts, read yours, and think about the meanings of the signs and the planets when you were born.
I like it.
So, do you want to talk about planets?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I think Leo should be the one to talk about the sun.
The sun. So when you're looking at the sun on your chart, people consider it the main sign, and you look at your sun placed in a constellation. It's the ego or the inner self. It's like how you flow. It's how you think. It's your inner personality. So the people that know you really well will probably recognize that see you day in and day out. They see you every day. They're going to probably recognize you more by your sun sign. And that's why a lot of times in the West here, they call it the main sign. We may dispute that a little bit, but that's the basics of it.
Yeah. And I'm going to skip down to the Earth or the ascendant sign, because that's the one that you see most prominently in people, I would argue.
It can also be called the rising.
Yeah, the rising sign or the ascendant sign. That is which constellation was rising at the moment of your birth. So it's, everybody who shares your birthday would have your same sun sign.
Yeah, so it's going to be what's on the eastern horizon.
But the eastern horizon, that's where heaven meets earth. That's where you incarnated into this form and exited your mother's womb because there's no other way that I'm aware of to get here.
And that's why we align the Earth on with this one, because it is everything about the orientation of the Earth. It's how the Earth is oriented, and it's going to flip through the full orientation. In fact, we're like every astrologer that I know of will be like, your ascendant sign is more you than everything else. It's where it assigns all your houses. You want to explain how it initiates that?
Yeah. So your ascendant sign is the cusp of your first house. So it's where the 12th house of heavenly things, the other world, meets your physical body, the first house. That's how you define it. And so people look like their ascendant signs. People act like their ascendant signs. Like you see it all the time. And that's another way that you can kind of reverse engineer someone's birth time if they don't know it exactly, or if you don't know it but you know them really well. You can say, okay, well, this person, their sun sign is X, but they act this way, and you can kind of figure it out that way.
But one thing to note there with that is considered one of the most complex form of astrology, and if you can do that, you're considered one of the top-notch astrologers.
If you can do it with people that you know well, I think doing it with perfect strangers would be like another order of magnitude difficulty.
Yeah.
So that's the ascendant sign, and that sets up the first house. Like that defines where the first house is, and with the rest of the zodiac wheel, that defines the other 11 houses as well.
Yeah.
That's why they'd say it's more you than anything else.
We'll get into degrees on other more complex lessons, but let's say that's why the very minute you're born is important when you like punch it in on these other sites, whether it be Astrodientis or Cafe Astrology or whatever popular one people are using to run the calculations. But it could end up on 5 degrees Aries.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to be, everybody who shares your birthday is going to have your same sun sign and most of your other same planet signs, but they have to be born within a few minutes of you to have your same ascendant sign.
Yeah, and one other thing to note is people oftentimes look more like their ascendant or their rising sign. And they get it's the body. Like there's metaphors in the Bible, for example, where they'll be talking about the body of something, and it's to point out that that's what it's referring to as the ascendant or the rising or the eastern horizon.
Okay, so the moon. The moon is your emotional world. It's the watery stuff. It's
how you feel.
How you feel, and really, I think a lot of people wouldn't see your moon sign coming out unless they know you very, very well. I think that's an inner part of you that doesn't necessarily show quickly.
Yeah, it's one of the things that could affect somebody's temperament, though. Like how emotional or angry they could get. There's other ones that do, but that is a main one.
Yeah. So Mercury would represent how you communicate, how you speak, how you construct your thoughts when you're communicating them to someone else. Venus.
It also can sometimes be how you travel. You could have some heavy fire placements on your other ones, for example, that would make you normally kind of aggressive. But you may just, if you have a lighter, softer, watery Mercury, you may chill out a little bit driving. Like it's something that can affect that. Some of these have crossovers on how they affect you. Anyways, look at yourself, look at your charts.
Venus, this has to do with what you love and how you love and how you want to be loved.
Yeah, think of it as an inward thing. It's like a receiving, like a direction of not necessarily how you are, but how you like to be treated.
Yeah, how you want to be treated by those that you love. Okay, Mars. I think I have to let the Aries talk about Mars.
Think of it as forward, how you do things. It could be affect your temperament and how angry you get, how you fight. But it's your do, it's your action, it's your how you get angry, how you fight.
How you initiate action. A lot of MMA fighters that are very good have Mars and Aries.
Yeah, sometimes Mars and Leo too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you'll
So
see
a fiery planet and a fiery
yeah,
sign.
you'll see a lot of guys that are world champions like have a lot of those alignments.
Okay, Jupiter. So those are the inner planets. Those are the ones that are most, descriptive of you, the person.
Your personality. So that's why I put them in different boxes.
Yeah, and so the next set, Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is your blessing and Saturn is your opposition. And where your Jupiter placement is, that would suggest where you grow, what comes easily and naturally to you.
like an expansion.
Yeah, expansion is
Like where
really
you're
good word
blessed.
for it.
And keep in mind, we're going to get into this in other lessons more deeply. It's kind of superficial a little bit where your Jupiter lands, but I would look at it even harder and stronger when you see the will, and we'll show you a will or do a mock reading with you, and we'll show how where it lands in a house. I would give it more energy, more meaning,
More attention, yeah.
where you see where it lands in your house. But
And that's both Jupiter and Saturn, so your blessing and where maybe more effort is required from you.
yeah, I don't want to reveal too many secrets, but like Jupiter, if it lands in a certain house or a certain sign, look at the body. If Jupiter lands in one of those body parts, it could make that body part bigger.
And Saturn can make it smaller.
That is true.
Well, and I would say, it bigger and smaller are relative. I come from a family of people where, though you might see me on the screen, I'm a big guy, I'm actually pretty small in my extended family.
Wow. Yeah, that genetics may be another
there's
thing for that.
There's a relativity to it.
Relativity.
Okay, and then finally the last three planets. These were more generational planets. These move slowly through the chart, and I think these affect like large groups of people kind of all at the same time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's more demographics. We don't want to spend a ton of time on here because it's really beyond personality. It's not that if you see like a connection, like a trine and opposition, it can affect you more that way. When you're looking at your calculations done from a professional site and you're looking at the symmetry of it, it can affect you that way. Like if it's having a pulse in opposition with Uranus, which would be like a social construct, it could make it to where you don't have the best flow with that. If you have a planetary alignment, but
like these outer planets, they take so long. Like I think Pluto takes around 20 years to travel through a sign. Mm-hmm. So everybody born in a 20-year period has the same Pluto sign, basically.
Yeah.
And so the impact is like I say, more generational and demographic than specific and personal.
Yeah, it's like you go way back when Pluto was in Libra, for example, and that generation could have a little more heavy divorces, right?
Yeah, fortunately, that's before I was born.
So one example of how these outer planets can play a role in more social constructs instead of personality is recently Pluto's alignment has been in Capricorn the past 15, 20 years or so. And during that time, we've seen a diminishment of strong over-the-top masculinity. And it's like people frown on that, and there's like almost campaigns against toxic masculinity. So we've seen that transition. We've gone through it. We've lived it. We've seen that. Yeah, but it's not necessarily somebody's personality. It's the world they live in.
Yeah, it's the treatment of all masculinity as inherently toxic and transforming the way that we all view that. Like there are large groups of people who see the whole subject of masculine and feminine things very differently than they did 20 years ago.
Very true.
Something that we've also seen though recently is, at least I've seen online, a lot of women starting to push back from that thought form and saying like, hey, you may want to rethink how you're approaching the masculine energy.
It's interesting that you'd bring that up. We've been transitioning into a different sign, leaving that, and now you're seeing it. Mm-hmm. Now you're seeing a pushback, and it brings up other subjects now today. So
to make this practical and useful, should we take a look at a sample chart?
Yeah, I'd like that.
Okay. Right here, I've got the chart of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. All right, so the first thing that stands out to me on The Rock is Libra rising. Libra on the ascendant.
And we'll point it out so that you guys can kind of see it. The ascendant is where it says AC.
Yeah, that's on the... So when you're reading one of these charts as a wheel like this, that's the... if it were a clock, the 9 o'clock position, the left side at about even, think of it like the horizon.
Very good. So that's his ascendant. The way it landed, it was a few degrees into Libra. It wasn't at 0 degrees. So his houses start at that point and then start the rotation around.
Yeah. So what things would you determine about him based on being Libra rising?
Well, it's his main sign. That's going to be more his, not how he is, but more his public persona. And if you notice that he kind of plays like a peacemaker publicly, even though he may be bullheaded and butt heads with people in private. He's had some drama from the Fast and the Furious movies, for example, but then when you see him on an interview, he's really pleasant, really charming.
And really even-keeled, even when it's a really polarizing issue. I know I saw him on Joe Rogan recently talking about he has friends who are Democrats and he has friends who are Republicans, and that can be really polarizing, especially in an election year like 2024, but he can play the peacemaker.
Yeah, and
now being bullheaded, I can't let that pass unnoticed because his sun is in the sign of Taurus, right?
Right. Did you know that he has a bull head tattoo on his arm?
No way.
And when he was doing wrestling instead of movies, he referred to himself as the Brahma Bull.
That's
Why
pretty
is that? Is he a Taurus?
He is a Taurus.
Yeah, sun in Taurus.
Okay.
So if you look at the chart and you follow the sun glyph, that's how you would read this. You see it in the Taurus symbol. And we've put on our graphics, like the keys, the glyphs, so that you can reference that and use our charts for the readings to help interpret these.
Yeah, and when you're doing your first readings, you'll probably be looking at a table that lays it out. Takes a little more space. This is a very compact way to look at a chart all at once.
True.
Okay, so Moon, it looks to me like Moon is in Capricorn. So we've done kind of his big three here. He's got Sun in Taurus, Moon in Capricorn, and Libra rising. What do you want to say about Moon in Capricorn?
Ooh, that's an interesting one, because that would more relate to his emotions. So if you get him triggered, you get him emotional, and you may see him more. This is what somebody would see with him more in private.
Yeah, when they know him really well, like his family.
Yeah, and his emotions are going to be tied to the father of the zodiac, the whiny goat that's going to be like, hey, this isn't working, we need to do something better. Like how do we redo this? I don't like this. Like, he'd probably be more out to like really get there. Like, if something wasn't going the way he wanted, he's going to probably let it be known to somebody in private.
Yeah, Moon in Capricorn can complain when they don't like something, but they also are going to care about goals and moving forward. It's going to be triggering if they're going backwards in some way.
And the way he's manifested this energy a lot is he is very goal oriented. He gets up like 4 or 5 in the morning. He works out, and he is very goal oriented. He wants to be the best looking, the best, most in shape, and he's getting up there in age now, and his body looks good.
Yeah, he's stayed in shape, and he's kept his youth. He also has Jupiter in that same, near that same spot with the moon, so that's expansion and growth upon that too.
So let's give them an example of the house. So we're picking on the Capricorn. What house does it place that in?
Let's see. This is, to my reading of this, the 3rd house.
Gemini.
So it being the 3rd house, when he gets into his emotion and he gets into it, that's probably why he was such a good communicator, why he excelled so much. Because I watched wrestling as a kid, so I was fairly young still when The Rock was doing his thing in the professional wrestling business, and he would just be like, "Do you smell what The Rock is cooking?" And then he would say stuff like, "Oh, well, lay the down on your candy butt. I won't swear on here. And take you down to Jabroni Drive, you piece of monkey crap. You know what I mean? He was like, but like he would spew off, but he was doing things to cut them down in his communication. You see how like he would get into the motion of it.
So he's got the moon in Capricorn and then the Jupiter expansion on top of that when he's doing it big.
With his words, yes.
Yeah.
His expansion was through words.
So, and he excelled because of how much of a good communicator he was. He would say things right on the spot. He was a little bit dorky, a little bit silly, and could really cut somebody down like nobody else.
Interesting.
And as somebody that had watched wrestling as a kid, I'm not into it anymore. It's just too much. It's just too over the top. But it's just not something I'm going to spend my time on.
Yeah, if you want to watch choreographed things, you could always get into ballet.
Yeah. So what happens is he did so good because he was a communicator, and he was was able to pull in some exaggeration, and he was in shape, and he just really excelled at that. But it was mainly because of his mouth, because of his way to communicate. And you said his Jupiter was in...
His Jupiter's
Capricorn.
just a few degrees away from it. So moon is at 2 degrees Capricorn, Jupiter's at 8 degrees Capricorn.
Yep.
So just close by. And with the moon, I'd call that a conjunction because the moon's bigger than these other points. So another thing that I notice on this one is Mercury and Venus, or not Mercury and Venus, excuse me, Mars and Venus in Gemini, and they're both, at 23 and 25 degrees. So they're both right there together. Mars and Venus in Gemini in the 9th house.
He really had quite a lot of Gemini energy.
Yeah, so he would be very expressive, and he's known for like showing the eyebrow, like raising his eyebrow, right? and he would be very expressive in how he would do things. So he would communicate through like his body language. And he pulled that, and he did that in the movies, where he would smolder, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'd do that, or he's even done voice work, singing in, what was that movie that I can't think of now? Where he plays a cartoon version of basically himself.
Yeah. Mona?
Oh,
Moana, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that was a fun movie. And he would sing when he was doing wrestling too. He would get out the guitar and he would like sing a song, Capricorn, cutting him down, mocking him. Makes me want to actually go find a couple clips and see if I can get around fair use and put them on, or repost them. But
that is an interesting expression of seeing the Capricorn in the 3rd house. The Capricorn mixed with the Gemini energy. It definitely came through.
And we weren't expecting to do an exhaustive reading on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but we wanted to show you.
But Dwayne, if you're out there, give us a call.
Yeah, we'll finish up the rest of the reading for you on the house.
Right.
So, not that he
would need it.
not that he would need a free reading. But
we still would.
But the point is all of our energies are mixed. We have so much overlapping mixed stuff. And we wanted to show you guys, like, okay, how do you start looking at it? How do you apply all the big long lesson that we showed here previously? How do you apply it? Yeah. And is there anything else that we need to show them to where they can kind of grasp this to start like doing it on their own?
Have you talked about the Mercury yet?
No, we haven't talked about his Mercury in Aries, which is in the 7th house.
I mean, being a wrestler and having the god of war at your Mercury, your expression, your communication, and he was able to spit things out really quickly. And he honored that energy really good, because sometimes Aries Mercuries don't have a lot to say, but sometimes he would say a line and then wait and like breathe, and then he would say another line.
Yeah, when I think of Mercury in Aries, I think of people who are very direct and to the point. Just, sometimes they speak in short sentences.
Yep.
Not like me with Mercury in Gemini, where I talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
Yeah. Very, very, very true. My son has Mercury in Aries, and you'll be like, hey, how do you like that? And he would just like text back, good. But it would be like sometimes one word, one line, and Rock would do it also. Do you smell what the Rock is cooking? And then he would let that go and just say that sometimes. And he would have like a lot of lines where he would just say that line, and then he would take a break, a pause, and let it fester, like express
let the
it.
people think about it.
And then he would use his Mars, how he would move his body to show communication. And then he would posture his body, and while you'd think, he'd say another one-liner. And they would be very direct, like cutting the other person a lot. Like he really used his astrological profile well. It got him where he's...
Well, any
Yes,
other
today.
secrets of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson that we want to reveal to the whole world right now?
What's his Saturn in?
Saturn is also in Gemini, but it's in the 8th house instead of the 9th. So he's probably not watching the channel.
Ooh. So
Gemini.
Saturn's in the 8th house. He's had some really hard trying experiences, and gone through like a pretty tough divorce, and 8th house could be pretty deep and cutting that way. It may not be the most appropriate to dive into to that one.
Like I said, how much of his secrets do we want to reveal to the world?
Because Saturn's like your trial, your punishment, and
Where you're slowed down or restricted.
And I think we covered Jupiter well. That's what we're going to see more of when we're looking at, and we'll be able to verify it better. In regards to a celebrity, somebody we don't know in person, touching on their sun, their rising, and their Jupiter is something that we're going to see manifest a little more from our perspective.
Yeah, until he comes in to sit down with us in person, which we'd be happy to do. Just send the private jet to pick us up. We'll meet you where you want.
Anyways, feel free to ask any questions. Put them in the comments. What can we do to help you guys out? What will help you guys be more comfortable understanding these concepts as a whole?
Understanding yourselves, understanding the charts. Just ask any questions.
And like I said in one of the other videos, accepting both the good and the bad, the challenging, and not giving it power over your agency.
True, because you can evolve. There's a light side and a dark side to every sign, and it's part of why we're here. We get to evolve and overcome our weaknesses.
And it's like this. I have a lot of heavy Aries placements, and throughout this, Taylor's razzed me a little bit. But that's the I am, the self, the important one, the hero, right? And the idea of, does that mean that I can't care for a partner? Is that an idea that like I can't care about the other person? The opposite of that is balance. Can I bring balance? But like you've heard us talk on the channel before, like I find balance super important. Like I'll say like the most important sign to understand is Libra, and that's the opposite of me. So because in balance is where we find power, and it's okay for us to evolve out of that and to connect to our opposite sign and embrace the opposite sign too.
That is what creates the balance, is when you honor the opposite energy and bring balance to it.
Yeah, and needless to say, some of my favorite people on the channel are Libras. I love hearing my Libra comments on the channel. So there's been a couple of them that are like, oh, I'm Libra, and they both the Libras that have commented a lot are
Much
some
appreciated.
of our very appreciated, and some of our favorite people to have on the channel. So
yeah, on the channel and in our lives.
yes, that too. Well, we hope this has been helpful, and feel free to reach out and let us know how we can help.
Okay, we'll talk to you all soon.